Carlos, last time we were chatting, you really got me thinking about how the West, like its official voice, the governments, the media, the elites, right? They use words like morals, values, justice, and human rights. But you suggested they mean something totally different from what most of us understand. And a lot of folks in the comments, they called it doublespeak or hypocrisy, but you disagreed. Can you clarify that for me? What were you really getting at?
Ah, Michael, exactly. I knew that would come up. And it's crucial to clarify because no, it's not doublespeak, it's not hypocrisy, and it's certainly not deception. Not really. What I was trying to explain is that when they use those terms, they are being completely honest, completely accurate in their own understanding. They're not saying one thing and meaning another. These are, in fact, their actual values, and we have to grasp this. There's a fundamental, profound difference between their values and ours. They're not contradicting themselves at all, you see. They're acting entirely consistent with what they believe is right.
Okay, so if they're not being hypocritical, then that's a lot more unsettling, actually. It means they genuinely believe in the morality of their actions. Can you give me some examples, to really drive home how this plays out in real-world scenarios? Because when you think about it, some of the things they support are pretty, brutal to most people's standards.
Absolutely, Michael. Take the genocide in Gaza, for example. When the West depicts it as completely justified and defensive, they're being honest with their values. They genuinely see it that way. And remember when 1 million babies died in Iraq due to a decade of sanctions, and they said it was worth it? They weren't being hypocritical then either. They weren't saying one thing and meaning another. Committing massacres against innocent civilians doesn't trouble their conscience. It's like it's no more troubling to them than you stepping on a bug, They don't feel guilty. In fact, they probably feel they've done something good, something necessary, according to their moral compass.
Wow, that bug analogy, that's incredibly chilling. It paints a very stark picture. So if we misunderstand this, if we keep thinking they're just being deceptive or that they'll eventually see reason, what kind of danger are we actually putting ourselves in? What's the fatal mistake you mentioned?
If you don't understand this, Michael, you will severely and dangerously underestimate their true nature, their danger. You'll make the fatal mistake of believing you can ever appeal to their sense of morality or their conscience. They don't have one that aligns with yours. There are tens of millions of their victims crying out from their graves, telling you not to trust them. It's like watching a horror movie and shouting at the screen, "Don't go down that dark alley." If you could hear the voices of their millions of victims, they would tell you exactly what's going to happen to you if you listen to them, if you trust them. Don't ever think they are like you and I. They're not like us. This is incredibly dangerous.
That's a powerful warning. So if they're not like us, and if they operate with this kind of worldview, who exactly needs to be most careful? Who are the primary targets of this consistent application of their values? Is it like people outside of the West, or is it also within?
It's both, Michael, both inside and outside of America. If you're Muslim, or you're not white, or you're not rich, you need to recognize that they have zero moral hesitation about killing you. Whether you live outside America or inside America, it's the same to them. The worst thing you can do is underestimate this reality. You learn what their values are by what their actions are, much better than by what their words are. People can tell you all kinds of things about what they believe, what their morals are, but their deeds, their consistent actions, those will tell you the truth. And their deeds show a profound bloodthirstiness, a willingness to spill blood with a nonchalance that is frankly chilling. It's truly terrifying, really, when you consider the scope of it all.
Okay, so let's talk about history then. People often point to historical events like Muslim conquests and say, well, every civilization was violent, every empire was violent. America or the West isn't unique. What's your take on that? Are you saying there's something uniquely distinct about the West's history of violence?
Ah, yes. They love to talk about Muslim conquests, wars, jihad, Islam spread by the sword, right? As a Muslim, I have to tell the truth, whether it's for me or against me. We don't get to spin narratives. So I'll tell you, over the course of 1400 years, millions of non-Muslims died at the hands of Muslims. That's a fact, no denying it. Exact figures are impossible to ascertain, and many casualty numbers from those old days are exaggerated. But historians estimate somewhere between 15 to 25 million non-Muslims have been killed by Muslims. That includes battles in Persia, the Byzantine Empire, the Levant, Egypt, Spain, all the battles of the Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Seljuks, the Ottomans, the massacres against Armenians and Assyrians, civil wars in Sudan, Darfur, even acts of terrorism by Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Now, overwhelmingly, most of those casualties were soldiers in battle, not civilians, though civilians were certainly involved. So, 1400 years, 15 to 25 million non-Muslims. That sounds like a lot, right? It makes you think, yeah, every empire was violent. But let me show you why this is different.
It absolutely sounds like a lot, Carlos, and, it's hard to wrap your head around those numbers. But you said the West is different. So tell me, why? How does that compare to the scale of Western violence you're referring to? Because if you're saying 15 to 25 million over 1400 years is not unique, the numbers you're about to give me must be truly staggering.
They are, Michael. They are. Because in roughly a third of that amount of time, about 500 years, the West has killed 275 million more people. You, and I say you because America is the standard bearer for this, you slaughtered, genocided, starved, bombed, murdered 300 million people in just the last 500 years. In fact, America alone has killed in just my lifetime almost as many people as the total killed by Muslims in 1400 years. Imagine that. In just the last 50 years, you've killed the equivalent of all non-Muslims killed in every war ever fought by Muslim empires over a millennium. That's why we point to the West specifically. That's strange. It's abnormal. It's unique. We're not even talking mostly about soldiers being killed. We're talking mostly civilians. Even in your wars, between 50% to 70% of casualties are civilians. You stand out in history. So no, the West isn't just another violent empire. It's on a completely different, far more devastating scale.
That's truly horrific. It really puts things into perspective. It's not just another empire. It's a completely different level of devastation. So if this bloodthirsty ethos, as you call it, is so deeply ingrained, how does it manifest within America's own borders? Does this internal violence reflect the external aggression we've been discussing?
Absolutely, Michael. It's the same underlying ethos. Look inside America. You see a society built on brutality, a nation whose very foundation is violence, not just internationally, but domestically as well. The same ideology that drove the slaughter of indigenous people, the enslavement of Africans, the subjugation of entire nations abroad, is the same ideology that fuels the police brutality in your streets, the economic strangulation of your poor, the educational deprivation of entire communities, the mass incarceration of your underclass, and the legal subjugation of so-called minority groups. It's all connected. The same groups that have been subjected to violence for centuries in their countries of origin now bear the brunt of this domestic war. It's a consistent, persistent pattern of internal violence, a systemic cruelty that mirrors the external aggression.
That's a pretty heavy statement, linking everything like that. I mean, it's not often you hear people say the economic system isn't broken, but functioning as intended. Can you expand on how this system working as intended directly results in these domestic brutalities, especially concerning poverty and education?
The American economic system is not broken, Michael. Understand this. It's functioning exactly as it was designed to function, to extract wealth from the many and funnel it to the few. If you're born poor in America, the system ensures you stay that way. Your education system isn't an equalizer, it's a caste system. Schools in wealthy areas are well-funded with top-tier facilities, while schools in poor neighborhoods are neglected, underfunded, and deliberately set up to fail, setting the students up to fail. And the reason is obvious. An educated population is dangerous. An informed citizenry questions authority, challenges injustice, demands fairness. America's elites cannot afford that, so they keep entire communities ignorant, disempowered, hopeless, funneling them into either the prison system or the cycle of wage slavery. It's a deliberate strategy.
So, if the system is designed to create and maintain this cycle of oppression, does that mean there's no hope for reform? Is it impossible to change from within? Because, a lot of people dedicate their lives to trying to reform these systems, believing they can make a difference.
The most dangerous mistake you can make, Michael, is to think that this system can be reformed. To think that those who benefit from that system will one day grow a conscience, because they won't. They're doing exactly what they believe is right, exactly what their values dictate. And unless you recognize this, unless you understand the true nature of what you're dealing with, you will continue to be trapped in an illusion, thinking that change will come from within a system that was designed to crush you. The brutality isn't a bug, it's the system working exactly as intended. Nothing's gone wrong. The misery, the bloodshed, the savagery all fall under their definition of morality. This disorients anyone who knows it's immoral, and in that state of disorientation, they get the drop on you. That disorientation is all part of their hunting strategy. They're predators, Michael, plain and simple.
That's a very unsettling thought, Carlos, that it's all intentional. The idea of a hunting strategy. It makes me think about that analogy you used last time with the wolf and the lamb. Can you remind me of that and how it applies here? How do we even begin to survive if we're dealing with such a fundamental difference in values?
Yes, the wolf and the lamb. When a lamb thinks about food, he's thinking about grazing in the field. But when a wolf thinks about food, he's thinking about that lamb. It's the same word, food, but two completely different understandings about what is intended by that word. So no, we have to tell the truth, and I have to tell you the truth about that country. It's my country. It's where I come from. I know its ways. My ancestors were Irish, colonized for 800 years. Now you come to tell me or try to convince me that it's all because of the Jews, because of the Zionists, because of AIPAC? No, we can sniff that out right away. That's blame shifting, shifting responsibility. It's the easiest thing in the world to go along with. That's what they're going to do anyway next. That's going to become the new official narrative. Israel blackmailed them. The Israelis are responsible for every crime they committed. But every crime they committed was on your behalf, and everyone knows it. You've got a people you have never done anything but hate for centuries to commit crimes on your behalf, colonial crimes, genocidal crimes, so that you can slither your way out of accountability when the time comes.
So, the strategy is to create a narrative, almost like a smokescreen, to hide the true intentions and avoid accountability. It sounds like a complex game of manipulation. If that's the case, what does that mean for how the world should interact with a nation that operates this way, especially when it comes to, dealing with the consequences of its violence?
The more you big up your so-called Judeo-Christian camaraderie, the more you big up your undying devotion to Israel, the more you'll be able to act like you've been betrayed. You can justify cutting them loose. I see what you're doing. No one will ever be able to accuse you of being anti-Jewish because of all the love you expressed, all the support you gave, and all the praise you showered on them. But genocide apparently didn't feel like betrayal. Mass murder didn't hurt your feelings. But if they've got dirt on Bobby Kennedy Jr., that's crossing a red line, is it? If they took pictures of you at Epstein Island, that's betrayal. That's dastardly. Not murdering over 50,000 men, women, and children in Gaza. You see their morality? They'll use something like this to cut Israel loose, not ethnic cleansing. They think they're going to be able to wash their hands of 8 decades of brutality that they sponsored, that they funded, that they armed, that they provided political coverage for. America always needs two things. They need an enemy to brutalize, and they need a mechanism of plausible deniability to try to maintain their image of innocence of the brutality that they commit.
So it all comes down to maintaining an image, no matter the reality. It's a deeply cynical view. If this has been consistent for centuries with an increasing death toll, what does that say about the very nature of America then? Is it truly exceptional, but not in the way it claims?
Oh yes, I could go along with that narrative. Lay all the blame at the feet of the Jews. Allah knows there's millions of Muslims who are ready to also go along with it because they are still so enamored themselves with the West, so colonized in their own mind, so indoctrinated with their love for America, and so propagandized, so inculcated with white supremacy themselves, that they can't bear to face the reality that no one has ever had to blackmail America into committing atrocities. In fact, it's the exact opposite. The only way to make them not commit atrocities is to pay them off. They've been in the protection racket and the extortion business ever since they had a navy. But I can't go along with that narrative, that blame-shifting narrative. Yes, the Israelis are guilty, but they're nothing but a bunch of white European atheist colonizers. They're nothing but a pseudo-Jewish brigade of American imperialism. That's what they are, imposing American values on Palestine. Every century that America has existed since 1776, every century has had a higher death toll than the last, from the hundreds of thousands in the 18th century, to the millions in the 19th century, to the tens of millions in the 20th century. And you're already over 6 million in just the last 20 years. You'll say that's because of technology, but you don't understand. That's nothing but an admission of what I'm saying. It's a confession, because violence and brutality are made possible by two capabilities, the weapons and the will. In other words, there's no question about you having the will. So the more technologically sophisticated you become, it just means that the scale of your violence will increase. Because it's just a given that you're going to be violent. Because again, that's what you believe in. Those are your morals. Those are your values. Like, of course we're going to kill. And if we have more efficient ways of killing, then obviously we're just going to kill even more. That's what you're saying. I mean, I know we'll never get the predator to own up to his predatory, bloodthirsty values, but at least the victims need to face the reality. The global South, the Muslim world, the Muslims in America, so-called minorities in America, the poor in America, everyone needs to know. A wolf's conscience is not bothered when he devours his prey. He doesn't see a victim, he just sees a meal. And he's not going to change his nature. He's got his hunting strategy. So you have to focus on your survival strategy. So at the very least, you have to recognize when you're looking at a wolf.
That's a profound and, frankly, chilling conclusion, Carlos. It really brings home the stark reality of the difference in perspective and the danger of underestimating it. The idea of a wolf and a lamb, it's not just an analogy, is it? It's a foundational understanding.
Indeed, Michael. It's the very core of what we've been discussing today. Survival hinges on recognizing the true nature of your environment and those who operate within it. Self-deception is the deadliest trap.
And on that incredibly sober note, I think we've reached the end of our time. it's certainly given our listeners and me a lot to ponder. That's all the time we have today, so in closing, remember, the wolf looks at a meal different than a sheep looks at a meal.